Hi everyone. So season 28 is about to start, and I believe there is one very crucial step in unlocking the altar that is probably quite overlooked by a lot of people. And I wanted to go more into detail about that. And what I'm talking about is the primals that you have to get for the potion powers. So there has been a lot of talk about the challenge with cash, the staff of herding. There's like other things like the Renaldi's gifts and a bunch of bounty mats. But in the end, all of that is kind of peanuts when it comes to the final unlocks of the potion powers, where you have to get 6 primals. And that is really the real bottleneck in this entire altar tree. Everything else you can kind of just blast through the game. You do like a few Ubers, you do a few bounties, you're kind of done with all of that stuff. Wait for the drop of the Renaldi's gift, and then you get to this point where you have to sacrifice your primals. So how do you actually get them most effectively? I think that by now probably a lot of you guys are familiar with the GR90 speed farming strategy. So this is something that I have already highlighted like seasons ago. So the idea is that at GR90 you have the so-called loot cap, and you don't get more items than that. So if you go to higher levels and higher levels, you get usually more loot and then also higher magic find, and this caps out. And afterwards, there's not really a point in going to higher tiers if you care about loot. And one way to get a lot of primals is to maximize the loot. In fact, that's the only way, because the primal chance is always 1 in 400, and you cannot change that in any way, even on the highest difficulties. So you might have seen this path of how you should unlock the tree. So this goes kind of like this here. You go down to the potion power, you take the other potion power here, and then you can also unlock the third one here. And you have the perma pools, and then something like the elite damage here. And this is the step where you have to sacrifice the challenge with cash. So I'm gonna just stop here for now. But the thing is that even if you pre-farm all these other objectives here on the left, you will most likely not end up with enough primals. So I want to give you some tips on how to get those. So you have to know that in order to get those primals, speed is everything. And this is something that maybe a lot of people are either not aware about or keep forgetting, and something that I want to highlight in particular because of the season theme. You want to unlock those double primals as early as possible so that you can profit from those extra primals. And if you do that really well, you can expect even over 1 primal per hour with the top speed builds. If you have very low town time and you sort out the loot really fast and you just blast through like 60-second runs, 90-second runs or something like that. And luckily, we do have some candidates of builds around that are also relatively easy to play. So I guess a lot of you guys are actually choosing the build to play by the solo push tier list, like our overall most important tier list, I guess, where we have all of the builds listed. But one thing you should maybe be looking at is the solo XP tier list, because this is specifically designed for the solo farming. And these are usually builds that are really fast and can complete greater drifts in this 60 to 90 seconds in the good cases, or maybe 2.5 minutes in the slower cases. And the thing is that usually some builds are a bit more fast-paced than others, and usually the way to play the game efficiently is to just keep speed farming as much as possible. And then some builds go, for example, higher tiers like Tal Rasha Meteor. This is a rather slow-paced build, but you go very high tiers and you get a lot of XP that way. Versus something like Multishot or a God Demon Hunter. Those are very fast-paced builds, and you can do those really fast runs on like 10 tiers lower than Tal Rasha or 15 tiers lower. So they kind of even out on this tier list here because we group them by XP per hour, but the loot per hour is significantly different. And one thing that I can do, for example, with a rather slow-paced build like Meteor or Wizard, which is probably some of the more popular builds this season, is to actually play a fast variant. So these builds actually do have fast variants. So the typical way to play this is with the double staff setup. And then again, as I mentioned, it's going to be like these 2.5 minute runs, 3-minute runs. Or you can do something like this here, where you drop one of the staffs and get an Elder Walker, and suddenly this run is significantly faster. Now in general, sometimes these are pretty greedy choices you have to make, like this one that I just explained here with the Tal Rasha Wizard. You do give up like 10 tiers of damage or something like that to make the runs faster. So your overall XP efficiency goes down, but it doesn't matter all that much very early in the season. It's all about speed, it's all about gearing up. And in season 28, more than ever, it's about getting those primals. So while Paragon farming is usually a very important objective of its own, it's actually not really all that relevant in Season 28 in my opinion, because especially at the start you want to max out this altar as fast as possible. And on top of that, especially the better pushing builds that we have here up in the S tier or even in A tier are going to be so powerful that they will reach GR 150 quite consistently very early in the season with not really a very high Paragon number. In fact, some of these top tier builds like Nova in particular can literally do Paragon 0 150 solo if you have the gear and if you fish for like a decent map and these kind of things. And the similar things apply to some stuff like Meteor and even some of these other builds here that are just so powerful next time around that this Paragon doesn't really matter all that much depending on your goals. So I feel like I've just been like explaining the obvious here. Going fast is obviously helpful to increase your efficiency, but I want to highlight this that you can actually make these kind of adjustments in your build or go down to a lower tier where you can take those extremely greedy choices and speed up those runs so you can do those GR 90s or maybe something like GR 100s if you like that more to gear up, get your drops, get your primals, and then unlock the entire altar very quickly without having to wait for those primals to drop. Obviously, if you do this, this is not a guarantee that you will get those primals so fast and that you will get like, let's say, 1 primal per hour or something like that. Or even like 1 primal per 2 hours is not even that terrible, I guess, for a lot of people. But with like 6 primals being required, the RNG is likely to kind of even out. So this means all you have to do is get enough legendaries to drop so that you get those 6 primals. Finally, I also want to discuss 2 questions that I got quite often recently, which is about the GR70 primal and also the primordial ashes feature. So the GR70 primal is a guaranteed drop, so this is how you unlock the primals. And people are asking me, are you gonna sacrifice that even if it's a good one? And the answer is hell no. So unless you're originally planning to quit the season right after you have unlocked those wings here with the altar, yeah, you might want to do that, but in any other scenario, you do not sacrifice a good primal. So if this is something you want to use, you will save it and you have to farm another one. So this is just how it works, because a good primal is way harder to come by than any random primal. So rather just wait for one more drop. And a similar thought also applies to the primordial ashes that allows you to make one item into a primal of your choice, but you have to salvage other primals to get that material to do this new group recipe. So you don't want to like start salvaging your items and your primals to make one big weapon or something like that at the start of the season. While this can be a relatively good boost, it will probably not give you much more than like maybe 1 or 2 GR tiers or so in raw power. And I think it's way better to just unlock those double primals first, and then you can do more to primordial ashes crafting later down the line once you have those leftover primals. Getting there is really the priority. And that's also already it for this video. So again, I want to highlight the solo XP tier list in particular, because these are generally fast builds or just efficient builds that can go fast as well. And in Season 28, with this primal requirement, you definitely want to try to go as fast as possible to get as much loot as possible so that you get everything unlocked the fastest. Because this is really the one thing in the entire altar that holds you back. In any case, I wish you good luck in Season 28. Hope you enjoyed this video, and see you guys next time.